Remember to subscribe to our Zoom Catchers YouTube channel and follow us on our socials. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our conversation with Professor Vera Katz.
No, thank you so much for sharing that story, because when I first heard it, I was just sitting there kind of blown away by it. And I get the impression, just based on that story and other things that you've said, you've really to draw on your faith or something deeper in yourself to keep pushing through. Would you say that?
Well, I want for my students all the opportunities they should have as Americans. And if I'm in any position of helping them get that, I'll do it. So that's it. I mean, little positions like I'm directing a play by Edward Albee, that's, who would have thunk that, it wasn't that I had to march. It wasn't, it wasn't, you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think it serves as an inspiration for people. You just don't know how a small act, quote unquote, can lead to really big changes. And so it's worth doing. Write that letter, do that thing, right?
We're going to see Clinton Turner Davis's production of Ceremonies and Dark Old Men. It's being produced in New York. Probably Garland knows about it. NEC is one of the sponsors. And we're going to see it after we see Felicia Rashad's production of Purpose. Now, both of these people were my students. I'm excited about it. But I bring that up to you to say, I've never stopped doing that. It's just in my blood. Because I've invited a number of people I know in New York who are young, struggling students to see the show and to meet the director. We're going to the last show, so the director will be there. And Clinton was one of my students, so we will wait till after all the hoopla, and then I'll introduce him to 3 different people. One who's a professional director herself that I trained at Duke Ellington High School. And she's done some stuff in Washington. So I want him to meet them. I want them to meet him. It'll be a 5-minute meet. When I'll say something like, oh yes, and she just did Clyde's at Studio Theater in Washington. It was wonderful, Clinton. And he'll just remember that. And then when he needs someone maybe to assist him in something, he'll call her up or something. That's the way the business works.
That's the way it works.
I know the business. So I'm just setting that up, and there's about 3 of us. James, who just got a wonderful private student I've been training for 5 years, wonderful review in the Washington Post for a small role that he was. Who would have thought that James would have been cast in a role at Silver Spring Stage it's a play called Dot by Coleman Domingo about his aunt who had Alzheimer's. So James, who refuses to cut his dreadlocks, and I've been working with for 5 years, I sent him the flyer on that show when he got cast in it. And I remember thinking, now, who did they cast James? Because the family, is all meeting up to see what to do with Mother, right? Well, they cast him as the Russian caregiver. He was...
Wow.
He learned the Russian accent. I said, James, you didn't even call me about that. He said, no, I got a recording and I listened. And he was wonderful. And the review mentioned him. So I called James and said, you've got to see Ceremonies because it's got a lot of male roles in it. And you've got to know this play. And you've got to know about Negro Ensemble Company. And, this is being resurrected. And you've got to meet Clinton, who's been a company member from years back. And so he's coming. He's coming.
Awesome.
So
Well,
I'm
I
still
do.
setting those things up is my point. Well, that's
No, and
what I'm supposed to do.
that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what we're all supposed to do. And you
Yeah,
see that that purpose and that need, and you're doing it.
I do. I
Mhm.
do. And if I didn't do it, I'd feel ashamed or guilty. I I feel that I'm in a position of, what's the word? Entitlement, and I'm not sharing it. You
I
see?
do want to talk, of course, and I know your students and the theater community really appreciates that, and I acknowledge that. And I do want to talk a little bit though about technique and acting a little bit, and 'cause I have questions about it. I'm not an actor myself, so I'm just curious when you're working with a new student, what is your approach? Is every student your approach to every student different? Is it a matter of you have
Okay.
general things that you're doing? Talk a little bit about that.
All right, I do. I was thinking this morning when I was getting ready for you, was thinking, I hope she's going to ask me about acting because nobody ever asks me about it. They
I'm
ask
asking.
all the other stuff. So here's what I've come to, and I've come to it more and more the more I teach privately. I don't care what you're doing. You must factor in variety. What does that mean? It means if you're going to say the first beat fast because you've just come out of the shower and you're upset and you got a bad phone call and you're going to tell the audience about it, then do the second beat slow so that the audience can catch up with you, so that then you can get into the meat of the piece. Or do the second beat quieter. Or do the second beat louder than you did the first beat. In other words, contrast. Contrast. Like your lovely blouse against your wonderful neck. There's a line where the blouse stops around your clavicle, and then we get your wonderful neck. Everything has contrast and delineation. Now, why do I tell you that? Because most actors, ones who are untrained, come in and they want to carry on from the very beginning to the very end. Oh, I said I was just in the shower and I got this terrible phone call and newbie. Now my mother's in Idaho and I can't get there. And how am I going to get an airplane? Newbie. And I know my sister won't care because. And the audience is turned off already. Plus, the audience is trying to figure out what's important here. What's going on? Nothing's been highlighted, like when you yellow mark and you're reading in college paragraphs, and there's a lot of crap, but then there's something in there that's a nugget that you want to remember, you yellow mark it. Well, you have to yellow mark for the audience. And my sister, with that boyfriend, well, we're not talking to her. Now, that means that you already have a relationship with sister because you played it. So what I'm saying is they come in and they do the same thing, the whole monologue or the whole scene, whatever's happening in the scene. They never change. They are emotionally gestalting from the very beginning. Now, David Mamet says, and he even put this quote up on the computer. He says, the audience does not come to see an actor emote. The audience comes to see the play, the story. And if they don't get the story clearly, they're ho-humming the whole time. And you've seen people in the audience like, I have to look at my cell phone. What time is it? I have to go to the bathroom. Where's that candy wrapper? because up there, they've lost them. And they've lost them because it isn't clarity. And it's not clear directorially because the actor's doing the same thing again and again and again and again and again, and there's no contrast. If she just slowly said, my sister, I've always disliked her. If to just change the tempo rhythm, if you change the volume, if you've changed the rhythm, and then if you highlighted the vulnerability. Now, they don't seem to ever find where the vulnerability is. And that's when I come in and say, wait a minute, what did she just say here? What? Because father likes sister better? Oh, yeah. Hey, but you rushed through that. I missed that. Wait a minute, that was too fast. Now we can go to emotional recall. Now we can go to Stanislavski. Now we can go to you remember father, playing more with her and never playing with you. Now you're having emotional recalls. That's good stuff. Sense memory. Good. I know what you're doing. But now it's in context that can be received by the audience. Mm-hmm. So what I find, for example, they have this competition. I don't know if they still have it. Maybe or maybe you could ask Garland. Kenny Leon was in charge of it. It was an August Wilson monologue competition for young people. And it only had to do with students from Chicago and up to California, not my end. I was an adjudicator on one of them. Every young kid got up and screamed and gestalted and emoted because they thought that's what you have to do with acting, and especially with August Wilson. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. And I was on the panel. Now, I didn't say it was terrible, but I came near to saying that. But I
came close.
I did say a few things. And of course, they never asked me back because the other people on the panel said, oh, it's so nice to see these young people doing August Wilson. So they saw it as a socio-political opportunity to have young Black people doing young Black playwright. I can understand that. And I was saying, well, that was very nice, but what about changing here? Where are the changes? Here's another tip. What's his face says I give good tips. Ben Vereen said I give good tips.
And you do.
The first paragraph of the monologue, or even the scene, has something to do with the last paragraph. So if you look at the last paragraph and you look at the first paragraph, you know the trajectory of where the playwright, the writer, wants that character to travel. Because, darling, I say you're traveling. You're figuring it out. Why are you talking about your sister now? What has that got to do with? And they don't seem to know that. Then they go, oh, and then it's revelation. And then they start to find things in the monologue. The other thing I do is don't let a phrase go by, just a phrase, without unearthing, getting underneath it, getting the subtext of it. Then Felicia Rashad says the word is all. That's her big statement. Now, I feel maybe not so much that, but yes, language is so important, and we don't live in a society for the last at least 10 years, if not longer, where young people talk or read, and so language. So what do I mean? I'm telling them that a phrase like, hey, sister, good to see you. Good. Hey, sister, good to see you is not, hey, sister, good to see you. Because they chop. Then I missed that was a sister. And then, did you really mean good? Or are you saying, or did you not mean good? Oh, Professor Katz, it's just the first line of the monologue. No, wait a minute. Got it?
Mhm.
Is it good to see? Good to see you. Oh, well. You know, well, now I know
Yes.
things are not good with these two. Got it? So I feel that they have to mark the monologue. I feel they have to learn what words to elongate. I love that hairstyle. I love it. It's different. Love it. Stretch. That's a stretch, right? Okay. Now, if I have a falling inflection when I say it, it's going to sound different. I love that hairstyle. Uh-uh. What exactly does that mean? Right?
Right.
So they don't know rising or falling. They don't know elongating or stretching. They don't know run on. They stop at every period, like you're reading. I love your hairstyle and that blouse. Where did you get it? And I say, let's listen to the recording of that, please. Why? Because you're going to hear yourself. Oh, I put too many stops. Well, some things are run-ons. You know, the way we talk. I love that hairstyle and that blouse. That's a run-on. So put a link there. Score the script with a link. A link is I keep going, and then I stop. Did you see Aunt Minnie today? That's a new beat. Contrast. Change. Look for the changes in the mind. So I'm not teaching Stanislavski. I get around to it, but they come to me from other classes, or they all know you have to feel it, but they don't know how to, for example, we get a long sentence. I call that the hallway phrase. I was eating my breakfast today when I saw that my friend crashed. I was eating my breakfast today is the hallway phrase. It's the buildup. It's the going down the hallway to the kitchen to get what you want, what you really want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying, I was eating breakfast today when I saw in the newspaper that my friend crashed, well, that's all the same. Better to say, to go back in the time of you eating breakfast. I was eating my breakfast today. That's the hallway phrase. Thinking about breakfast with the banana and all that. And then I saw something happen. Active. You made him active. So I've been teaching this stuff. Some people get it and they're wonderful and they get cast. I find that exciting. Oh, did you get cast? Well, I got a call back. Oh, well, go again. Blah, blah, And so that's terrific. Some people don't get it. They want to just emote because they think acting is feeling emotional. And I think, they like feeling emotional and it gives them working out problems, which I understand. But that's not technique. I mean, the ballerina wants to fly across this floor, but she's at the bar going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Practicing all the
Yeah.
behind the
And
scenes work behind it.
and the jazz player wants to go with the stuff, but he has to do one, right? I have to push them to technique.
Love
Now,
it. I love
I
it.
find what happens is then the ones who do it come in with the second monologue and they've scored it with the changes and they've done it themselves on the whole much better. My hope is that they run with it and that they don't, you don't want to see me all forever and keep paying me this money and this time. I want you out of here, but you've been coming to me for 6 months and you're still screaming.
That's a great segue into, the words and playwriting. I mean, the actors are working off of scripts. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how you got involved with the Frank Vera Writers Workshop and just playwriting in general. That's how, we personally connected. So how did you get involved with the workshop?
Well, I'm not sure. And, I've never considered myself, I've never written a play. I've never considered myself as a director. I do analyze plays very, very well and very long. I don't know. Garland, he enlisted me because we met at the festival, at National
Black
Black
Theater
Theater,
Festival.
and we've seen each other there for years. He's been there forever, and I've been there a number of years, but less than him. And he's seen people come out of my workshops excited. And I don't know if he ever sat in on one. You can ask him that. I don't know. But that's how it started. And then he asked me, and I thought, well, sure, because as Dr. Sloan said on that phone call, you analyze well and you speak well, and these are skills you have. And so I'm sure you can make a change. That's, what he said. So, and that was, he knew me in the early 80s. So that's how it happened, Now, I was, funny you should mention this, because I know that next week I have this class. So I looked up some books, and I looked up some things on the computer, and I looked up some books in my large plethora of books to look about language, just so that I can have those things to say to them first. But then I looked for examples, and I was so excited. Sheila is working on this play, as you know, about real famous Black people, suffragettes. And I found William Branch's play called In Splendid Era. And there's a scene there between Frederick Douglass and John Brown. Douglass is trying to convince Brown that he's foolhardy. And they're having a conversation. And I said, oh my God, this is great. How am I going to, Sheila, I'll read it to Sheila, or how am I get it? Because, Mr. Branch was writing in 1943, right? The situation those days, they weren't producing many Black plays. That wasn't his fault. But he was doing the scholarship, and he was, as Sheila has done, and Mr. Douglass was sounding like Mr. Douglass, and so I'm excited that I found that. And then I look back at my script with the rhinoceros and how a scene moves forward. I'm going to use that to demonstrate how just in a half a page, the scene is going forward from somewhere, from A to B. And then there was a third script. I can't remember it. Oh, James Baldwin's Amen Corner.
And just to let folks know, we had you teach, FSWW Online has a new course, and we had you teach that course, How to Analyze a Play, and that's how you met Sheila and other students. And so
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's been, I do the tech for that, for the online workshops, and it's been just great being behind the scenes and honestly listening to your tips and your advice and the information that you put out there for people, because a lot of it just seems so basic and simple, but it's like, well, but when you're in the middle of, let's say, like your description of the actor that wasn't changing their tone or just emoting, a lot of it seems common sense, but not necessarily, right? And that's what I love about it. It's like real simple clarity. And I remember from the workshop, clarity, keep it simple.
Yeah.
What are your, some of your tips for playwrights? I mean, it's not easy telling that story. And I think a lot of, we discovered that it's, dialogue is important and things of that nature. So what are your top 3 tips for the playwrights out there?
Beware of accuracy. I think it can strangle too much. You have to be accurate. You can't go off on the deep end, but you can't overdo accuracy. There we go. I'm asking myself, well, how much is overdoing? Well, a page and a half is overdoing for one monologue. Well, somewhere in there, we should know what the character's fighting for. That's so important. And there needs to be some resolution or some payoff. We were watching White Lotus. Did you watch White Lotus at all? All
Yes.
right. We were watching the last episode of White Lotus, and my girlfriend was saying that she didn't think the payoff on which character, I'm trying to remember. We discussed how the whole payoffs on some of them was fine, but there wasn't a strong enough payoff on I can't remember who. Brenda, that was a good payoff. Then the payoff on the guy who gets killed with the girlfriend in the water, that was a good payoff.
And if you could just explain the concept for payoff so the audience can understand exactly what you mean
Okay,
by
okay.
that.
Okay, but now I remember. Okay. The payoff, and I'll explain in a minute. The payoff on the daughter who was going to go to the monastery and decided not to. That was not clear. Was her decision based on the fact that brother was coming, or was it based on the cobweb in the ceiling, or was it based on all of them? And what really happened in that next scene was that she just wanted the creature comforts of capitalism. So that's all right, but it wasn't clear how she got there. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
So hers was not as clear as everybody else's. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, payoff means a character's fighting for something in the whole scene, in the whole play, whether it's TV, film, or theater. And do they get it or not? Well, somewhere in there, they make a decision that either brings them to it or brings them away from it. And then we have to see what that decision, if they make a decision, we have to see what that decision reaps. Do they win or lose? That's the payoff. Is it clear?
Understood.
All clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you so much for that.
A good play should have decision. The character whatever the character is fighting for should have to make some decision. If you don't make a decision, you can't get what you're fighting for, you know? Now, decisions come in different packages. Decisions come with, well, there are different ways to decide. For example, in White Lotus, he decided that it wasn't worth killing his family for, right? He made a big decision there. At least he wants to keep them because he almost lost them. And no matter what's waiting for him back on shore, it can't be as bad as losing his family. So that decision was important, wasn't it? Right.
Yes.
And what's his face, that cutie who I adored, who was a real Thailandese person, becomes the bodyguard. Remember, he makes a decision, right?
Right.
To shoot.
So a
Right.
good story has characters making decisions that are
Yes.
clear.
And the payoff is the result of the decision. Can be good or bad. Yes.
Thank you so much. We have been here with Professor Vera Katz. We've been talking. We could probably talk for hours more. I know your time is valuable, and I really, really appreciate it. And then just a couple more things I do want to ask you, because we've touched on everything that I really wanted to touch on. And one of mine though is, with your long history and your career at Howard and all the different students that you've had, you've named several of them. How do you now, when you look back now from where it all started, and there was a lot of drama and chaos and problems for you, and you see them now on the stage or on the screen, like how does that feel given everything that you went through, or what does that mean to you now?
It was worth the journey. It was worth the obstacles. It was worth the journey. Whatever you're doing, try to make a difference, whatever you're doing, because it gives me much pleasure to know I made a difference. And that hooks into my belief that my life was worth something. That's very important. It gives me a lot of internal satisfaction and pleasure that I made a difference and that my life was worth something. I didn't just buy clothes to match clothes, which I do a lot of. I didn't do just that. I did something that was worthy with my life. And I passed it on, passed it on. It was worth the journey. If I knew then what I knew now, I would still do it. It's not going to be easy. Life is not going to be easy. Whatever job you have, you're going to run into obstacles, whether it's people don't like you or you don't like the people who are running the ship or whatever. You've got to jump those obstacles. I've come to the conclusion that we are sent obstacles as tests, and we will always get obstacles in marriage, in our economic handling. We will always get obstacles in our health. And it's how we deal with those obstacles that will move us to the next level and the next level and the next level. And it's a struggle, but when you get rid of one obstacle, you feel you've done something and you've given all of yourself to it, and then you go with the next obstacle, you know? So these obstacles are there for a purpose. They're to strengthen us. They're to strengthen our fiber, and they're to strengthen our ability to give to each other. I think they're there for a reason. I didn't know that when I was younger, so that's what age gives you. You know?
Let's talk about Chadwick Boseman just for a couple of minutes. Tell us about your work experience with him. He's such a talented actor. He was, unfortunately, he passed away. Many feel too soon, but
Chadwick
yes.
Boseman.
So just if you could just tell our audience about your experiences working with him and training with him, that'd be awesome.
It didn't take the whole department, all the faculty, long to realize that we had somebody very precious in our department. Everybody was impressed with him. We would all talk about it at meetings. But I was lucky because he came to me and I was in charge of I was a directing advisor. I taught both acting and directing. I created the directing program because I believed that people should direct their own pieces, their own histories. And with Dr. Carol Singleton, the late Dr. Carol Singleton, I managed to get approved by the American schools of theater. Now, which wasn't an easy feat, but I won't go into that. But she knew the ways to do it. And so we got permission, because the problem was that directing had always been taught on a master's level. And my approach was that nobody was going for a master's in directing at that time in America, especially Black America. And that was a way of not having Black directors. So I fought that, and we had a directing program. Well, so in comes Chadwick Boseman, and he wants to talk to the directing advisor. And I meet with him in my office, and he says, well, should I major in acting or directing? So I said, what have you done in acting? Well, not much, but he tells me a few things here and there. Already his vocabulary is incredible, and already he's so well read. He's citing quotes from books, and just the first last meeting with him in my office. So I said, and he has talked about this in interviews, I said, well, you can always study acting while you're taking directing, because you have to take classes in acting to be a director. But if you study directing, you'll always have work, and you'll always understand the structure of a piece. You'll always understand how it grows and what's important in it. And you strike me as someone who's well read. And he said, well, I've done a lot of reading. Well, he also struck me, so he majored in directing. And he wrote plays. Kimberly, he wrote plays, and I was his advisor for the plays. He wrote graffiti. What was the first one? Something graffiti. Hieroglyphics graffiti. Can you imagine? Just the title should tell you something about him. Hieroglyphics graffiti. And I was the advisor. I went into one rehearsal. I watched them all work. I said, okay, he doesn't need me anymore. So I came back to the last rehearsal, and then I went to the show. He was the first student that I'd ever met at Howard in my 32 years there that said to me he wanted to learn about European plays. He wanted to learn about the theater of the absurd. And I said, well, Mr. Boseman, that's considered white theater. He said, oh, Professor Katz, stop with that. He said, stop with that. I need to learn that stuff. I need to learn why it's important, and I need to learn how to use it or do it. Nobody wanted that. So I started teaching him Beckett and Albee, and who was the other one? Ionesco, Genet. And, he would direct little scenes. He had to direct scenes after I would give a lecture. And they were good. He caught it. He understood it. He understood what was important about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he loved to do black work, of course. He was raised to pray every day. His older brother was a minister. There were three sons. I think he was the middle one. That I'm not sure of. But the older brother, who's still alive, and Kevin, I've spoken to, is a minister. And so they would pray every day. Mother and father were humble people. They were upholsterers, upholstered in Andersonville, South Carolina. But he was brought up with a great belief in himself and in his heritage and in what African Americans had achieved and what they could achieve still and who they were and what they had given to the country. He brought me a long list of black nut scientists. Oh, God. People, for example, the guy who did the lights, the traffic lights. He brought me lists of people who had contributed and
like inventors.
Inventions,
Mm-hmm.
yes. He brought me stuff like that, and it was fabulous. He was proud without being overwhelming. He just knew who he was, you see. He knew, and at such a young age, who he was, and he was proud of himself and his family and his heritage, and now he wanted to learn the techniques of directing. And I love to watch his directing scenes. And then I say, all right, sit next to me, Chad. This is what you have to do here. This works because this is wonderful. And he would put black music into things that of course I didn't know what they were, but they were wonderful. They worked. And he gained a reputation in the department of actors wanting to work with him. Everybody wanted to work with him, really. So we loved him. Now, comes almost his last year. There are pictures of it in my book. It was Charter Day in March. And a lot of dignitaries were there celebrating the university. And we, the faculty, had a march in cap and gown. And the color guard had just come up. And the president was standing there with a microphone giving an address. And out of the corner of my eye, in the very, very large arena of Crampton Auditorium, corner of my eye, I see Chadwick and the rest of my directing class, which is 4 other men, following him. They come up on stage and Chadwick grabs the microphone away from the university president. Can you believe I just said that? From the university president, and says, save the College of Fine Arts. Save it.
Wow.
Black art is the most important thing that we give to our country. Music and dance. And he goes on, and they grabbed it away from him. And I thought, sitting in the back there, oh my God, they're not going to let this man graduate. I started crying. And I open my eyes and I see they've lifted him up. The color guard has jumped up on stage. They're the ones who carry the flags and all that stuff. Anyway, they've jumped up on stage and they're carrying him out in a Christ position with his arms, out in a T. They're carrying him out with the other directing students following him off the stage, right? Somebody managed to get a picture of it. And it was like, oh my God. When our department met, we all said, oh, they're not going to let him graduate. What's going to happen to Chadwick? Oh my God. And I said, we've got to speak for him. We've got to organize. We've got, nobody knew what we were doing. Well, somehow, it was my last year there. Somehow they let him graduate. And then they named the college after him. Isn't that a story? Because he said when he came back after the Black Panther, they asked him if he would do the commencement address. Believe it. They asked him after he had done that, would you do the commencement address, because of Black Panther and, that it had become a worldwide phenomenon at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said in the address that if they reopened the College of Fine Arts, he would make a sizable contribution.
Wow.
They knew he was in Hollywood at the time. He had just done all his movies. He had done them all but Ma Rainey at that point. He had done what's his face, the dancer. Say it, Brown. Say it loud and say it proud. He had done him.
James Brown.
Yes, he had done him. He had done Thurgood, and of course he did Jackie Robinson. And then he had finished with the end. The last one was Black Panther. So when he died, he obviously left a sizable contribution, because they immediately named the College of Fine Arts the Chadwick A. Boseman. Yeah, Chadwick Aaron, the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts. It's on the building.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to put up a new building. Nobody knows how much it was. Nobody knows when they're putting up a new building, and we haven't heard doodly squat about it, but it's there. I met him in New York by accident. He told me he was thinking going out to Hollywood. He had just done a few minor roles on TV. We were both at a play. The 92nd Street Y in New York was very famous for doing plays. And I had gone to see someone, and I got tapped on the shoulder by Chadwick. I said, who do you know in California? He said, no one. I said, really? Well, why are you going out? He says, he's tried everything here in New York. He'd been working with all these little shows. So then I gave him my wise advice. I said, well, I would drop the wick. I would just call myself Chad Boseman. It would just be so much better, Chad. Do you know what he said to me? He looked at me wide-eyed and he said, but Professor Katz, Chadwick is my name of my ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had done the wrong thing. I mean, that's who he was,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story there. I'm seeing.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful young man. Brilliant young man.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. And this has been a conversation on aging. I really, really, really appreciate it, Vera. I enjoy every conversation we have. You have so much
thank you.
wisdom and experience, and just on behalf of the entire theater community, and all the people that you've touched. Thank you so much for your service in this craft.
Thank you. I've learned a lot from another community. That's given me a lot. It's strengthened me as a person. And I think people who work with communities that are not their own and continue to work with them, health people, people overseas, I think you grow. And I've learned a lot by that. I tell my students, go visit a mosque, go visit a synagogue, go worship in a Catholic church on Christmas Eve, because it's sort of the same thing, isn't it? And it's how we grow, understanding others. Thank you for this
Thank,
opportunity. Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much, and we'll
Okay.
see you next time.